Okay, thank you, Quinn, and welcome everybody. And we just came out of close, so our next thing on the agenda is moved by Councillor Gutson, second by Councillor McKenzie, that the minutes of Town of Minto, June 15th, 2021 regular council meeting and the June 1st, 2021 closed session meeting be approved. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Excellent. Additional items. Has anybody? I've got a couple. Has anybody? No, Ron and Jean and Bill. You got your hand up. You got an additional item? I'm just kidding you. Jeff? Okay. All right. Anybody else has one later, let me know. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor Elliott, the council of the Town of Minto council convenes in the committee of the whole. Anybody opposed? Carried. Excellent. We have no delegations today. We have correspondence. I'll just read this first. Moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councillor Gunson. The council receives the correspondence as information. Anybody want to pull anything out of the? There's a couple of interesting things there. I was just going to point out in my own, the one from John McVicker, and we'll probably have maybe he'll come and do a little presentation before that about his headstone hunt again. He was really good, and he's got a really interesting thing with Mark. I think you'd be interested in it, with the history of some of the World War II there that I was looking at. So other than that, I don't have anything else. So, oh, Jean, did you have one? Go ahead.
Yep, I got to unmute myself. It's not something to pull, but I just found that the newsletter from the Wellington Healthcare Alliance made for some very interesting reading, and kudos to the healthcare system, and nothing personal there, but just the job that they've done during COVID, the challenges to them all, including EMS, paramedic, firefighters, all our emergency services. It's been quite challenging, and they've done a marvelous job of rising to the challenge. And Stephen Streets is to be commended on his leadership for that organization right down to Groves. I mean, they opened and moved into a new hospital, which is unusual for a small community like this. Doesn't happen very often that you get a brand new hospital in your area. And that alone is quite a challenge, but to open it during COVID and to keep everybody safe and manage the number of people that have been coming through, kudos to them. And it's a really good publication. It gives us a good idea of what's going on out there.
Yeah, it's a good read for sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody opposed? Carried. Okay. Moved by Councillor McKenzie and second by Councillor Anderson. The council receives the culture roundtable minutes, and I'm going to turn it over to Gordon. You're going to take this one on. I believe Belinda's on holidays. Go ahead, Gordon.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor Bridge. So this is our June meeting. We usually take the summer off, but June was a very active month for the committee and a lot of the members. Just a couple of the highlights. We have a very active Pride committee, and they wrapped up a series of activities, and one of the mainstays, Rosie Crow, was interviewed by Matt Galloway on CBC Radio. So and she spoke very well, and appreciated the support of the Minto Council for that. And I'm sure most of the people here were at the anti-hate march that a few members and some help from the county pulled together on very short notice. We had, I'm sure, about 300 people there on a Monday night. And I think we're all determined to keep up the momentum and follow through on that. And again, big issue, much bigger than just Minto, but if we can do our part, we certainly will. Culture Days, so basically that's a subcommittee. Myself, Peggy Raftis, Megan Raftis, and Jennifer Frayne. We actually had a meeting last week, and we are eagerly planning in-person events. We may do some hybrids, but as you recall, last year, September, October coincided with a lot of changing circumstances on the public health front. And anyway, we're planning with confidence, and certainly put a call out there if anyone has any ideas for an event that either they'd like to run or like to see someone else run, certainly let us know. And we'd be happy to entertain that. And also another victim of COVID kind of was the Youth Action Council. And Megan is going to try and get that started, probably with a new group of young people too. And many of our groups, I know Councillor Anderson and the horticulture, they just had a little event about 10 days ago. And the Theater Guild and the Arts Council, we are making plans to do something in the fall. Art gallery, hopefully we can have it open again after Labor Day. And anyway, it was very good to have a positive meeting and look forward to things instead of canceling them or having nothing. So, any questions?
Questions for Gord? I just make a couple comments, Gord. I've been really pleased with the group. They've done really a lot of yeoman stuff, especially when you can't do any live stuff, which for Culture Roundtable, the majority of our stuff is live. So I'm really looking forward to September, and I don't want to jinx it, but we're going to do some live stuff. So that's going to be interesting. So looking forward to that. And I really do appreciate what the Pride group did in June. It's amazing what they did, and all the good comments we got back. So, and of course the march was something that we didn't want to have to do, but we did it. And I think we showed our true spirit as far as what our town is all about. So all good stuff. I have this moved by Councillor McKenzie and second by Councillor Anderson. The council receives the Cultural Roundtable minutes on June 28, 2021 for information and approves any recommendations contained therein. Anybody opposed? Carried. Excellent. I'll turn it over to Councillor Elliott to assume the chair for PRAC.
Sorry, you are muted, Councillor Elliott.
There. Thank you for giving me the chair. I was going to introduce Matthew, but I saw his daughter or someone that his protege was on the piano there. So you did show up. Good to see you. Matt, you can carry on with our minutes, and if you would.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Elliott. We got two sets of minutes here from May 31st and June 28th. In May, we reported that we were working on getting our day camp programs and pool programs ready for late June and early July. We have 3 day camp pods this summer, like last year, with 2 pods in Harriston and 1 pod in Palmerston. The 2 pods in Harriston use different areas of the arena to avoid any crossover of the cohorts. Both pools have been open since June 21st, and we're offering private lessons once again this summer, as well as several public swimming opportunities. Moving into step 2 in late June also afforded us the opportunity to work with Minto Minor Ball and the Minto United Soccer Club on some Minto only ball and soccer programming for youth, and that started last week. Lawn bowling and shuffleboard have also started up in recent weeks outdoors in Harriston. In June, we reported that the Norgan Theatre can reopen in step 3, which we anticipated to be in late July. In the meantime, the Norgan Theatre Board decided to host an outdoor movie with the help of the Palmerston Ag Society, and that's set to take place on Friday, July the 23rd, so a week from this Friday. With that, our plan is to reopen the Norgan for good, hopefully, the weekend of August the 6th. The Ball Diamonds in Palmerston may once again play host to a national championship. The Palmerston Imperials are planning to bid for the 2023 U17 Fast Pitch Tournament. They successfully hosted U14 Nationals, I think it was back in 2018, so it was about 3 years ago now. Also, the Palmerston Arena project team has met twice, and Steve Hardy, our project manager, is busy working on things behind the scene. And as always, we are busy hosting clinics in Palmerston. We have 2 vaccine clinics on July 27th and 28th, as well as a blood donor clinic on the 29th. The assessment center remains open and in place at the Harriston train station. Moving to step 3 this Friday means certain programming, rentals, and events can resume indoors, and we'll be adhering to the restrictions as we receive booking and usage requests. That's all I've got at this time.
Okay, I'll read the motion and then we'll ask questions. Moved by Councillor Gunston and seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the council receive the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meetings of May 31st, 2021 and June 28, 2021 for information and approves any recommendations contained therein. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Gunston.
Just wondered, is there an update on the pedestrian bridge in Palmerston?
That, through Councillor Elliott, that's something that our Public Works Department was looking at, and our CAO may have more information.
Thank you, through you, Councillor Elliott, to Councillor Gunson. Absolutely. So the shop drawings have been completed and they are out for pricing at the moment. So we're hoping to get that back early next week, and we'll see what the plan of attack will be. So that's where we are right now. The drawings have been completed and sent out for pricing. So we're hoping to get that back sometime next week.
Councillor McKenzie.
Through you, Chairman. Derek, is this an insurance claim or should be?
Well, that's a good question. I don't believe so, given some of the history that we have reviewed over the past little while. I don't believe we'd be able to cover it under insurance.
Through you, Ron.
Yeah.
It's my opinion that, just my opinion, that this was done many, many years ago, probably when the trains are still running, Mark, but never was picked up. Like it's old damage in my mind, not something that happened recently. But that's my opinion.
And I certainly don't see it wavering every time somebody walks over it. Doesn't seem that dangerous. But unfortunately, we're not engineers. So we have to adhere to what they demand, I guess, and they demand that it be fixed. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Anybody against? Okay, it's carried. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
And I'll turn the chair back to you, Mayor Bridge.
Great, thanks, Councillor Elliott. And it's great to see that we're starting to get up and running again at all our facilities. That's amazing. Next up, we have a really neat report, and it's nice that I'm going to get our CEO to work on this with our previous CEO, Mr. White. And so, Derek, I'll let you get Bill and you do this show going forward. And it's been a long trail, but I see the end now, and it's looking good. And good thing we started years ago on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I think this is our maybe even our third update to council on the county's official plan review. Both Bill and I sit on the county technical committee, and it's been going on for, oh geez, almost a year now, the way it got started. So the purpose of the report that's in front of you is to give you an idea of generally Minto is okay with the way that this is shaping up for us, but like everything else, there's some things that we want to see the county recognize and or acknowledge in their document, and they're going to county council on the 16th, I believe. So we wanted to get that in front of you and let you know. And then I think I'll turn over to Bill and to do a little bit more of an introduction as well.
Thank you, Derek, Mayor Bridge, and council. It's a pleasure to see you all today. I hope you're all very well, and it's nice to see things opening up in Minto and in Canada as a whole. So we're hopeful that we can get back soon to see everyone. As Derek mentioned, we were last before council in November on this issue, and at that time you passed a resolution asking for the population and employment figures to be released. The engagement committee had seen those, and the CAO and staff and I had put some comments forward, but they weren't released to the public until, well, earlier last month. Just a reminder about what this is, the comprehensive review, and there's lots of technical terms and so forth, but it has to happen within 3 years so that the county official plan is up to date with the growth plan and provincial policy. These are the policies that guide how communities are to grow. And they're also doing that at the same time as the 5-year official plan review, which is something they are also required to do in the area growth plan areas every 5 years. We had identified with you 6 issues for Minto, and they're listed in the report. In short, they are community economic development, urban boundary expansion, infrastructure funding and planning, surface water and flooding, affordability of housing, and I think the new term now is attainable housing. That was a new one given to me from the CAO, and then population and employment forecasts. As Derek mentioned, we sit together on the technical committee, and it's been fun to watch that process evolve. The phase 1 MCR report, there is a link in the report. You can go ahead and read the whole thing. It's 229 pages long. It's quite comprehensive, but it really is only the first part of the work that's been ongoing by Watson, the county, and their consultants. That report was made public June 18th, and then there was a public meeting June 23rd. I actually sat in for the town on that one, and it was, I don't want to say a non-event. The comments were very general, so not a lot came out of that. And I know Mayor Bridge, they may have been at County Council on June 29th as well with a presentation. So I think everyone's just trying to keep, it's a very big process. It's comprehensive in name and in fact. And everybody's trying to get information to the decision makers so that you can monitor and make good decisions as we go forward. In the report, you can see a link to various documents on the county website. Interesting little ones to look at if you want to get a snapshot of some raw numbers is the housing information sheet or the population sheet and the employment summary. But that basically shows you where Minto sits as far as the projections that are being made by the consultants at this point. Just keep in mind that Wellington County itself is going from 9th in the Golden Horseshoe in terms of growth to 3rd. So the province is focusing a lot of growth on the county over the next 30 years, and we're talking about to 2051. So Minto is lucky enough, as the CAO said, to being allocated at this point its fair share, I think, based on their projections. Just a quick look at the population. They're imagining Clifford going from 900 to roughly 1,400 people, and Harrison from 2,200 to 3,500, and Palmerston from almost doubling 2,900 to 6,100, and the rural population growing by 1,000. So Minto is projected to grow by 2031 to over 15,000 people. That's fairly sizable growth. That's about 1.5 per year, 1.5%. And so the housing units to be created to meet that growth is around 63 units per year. That, when I was working for the town, we got up to around 50 or so. I haven't looked at your last year or two statistics, but I'm gathering they're higher than that. But so 63 units a year would be very good years for Minto, and the idea is that would be sustained primarily in the urban areas over the next 3 years. This plan as it stands allocates most of the growth to municipal sewer and areas with municipal sewer and water. And it projects a declining amount of growth in rural areas, which in terms of preserving agriculture and so forth, I think that's important. But little settlement areas that are in the rural locations, I think they're going to be a lot tighter as far as any infilling or rounding out in those areas. So I think that's an issue. One of the issues that I think Minto should pay attention to as we go forward and as policy starts to come out from the county. So Palmerston is projected to grow at the highest rate. I think the staff, and I haven't talked to a lot of them, but in speaking with Derek and some of the things that have been talked about as reports have come forward, is that there's a concern that growth may be higher than what's being projected here, at least in the short term. Certainly consumption on sewer and water has been a concern in terms of being at a higher rate than what the county seems to be saying. That may be because a lot of people are at home and not going traditional employment areas during COVID. That may change, but I guess in the back of our minds as a consultant, as a staff giving you advice, we need to keep a careful eye on this growth. I think it's healthy in terms of residential, but if things start happening at a higher rate, then that is when you may need a bigger urban area to grow in. And so part of this will be about making sure that there's more flexibility in this process to expand urban boundaries if need be. You'll recall in Palmerston, I would say it's a 2-year process to have that happen. I think some of the exemptions in provincial policy need to be reflected more clearly in the county plan, and hopefully that will come forward as we go through this process. In terms of employment, whereas Minto's getting its healthy share of residential growth, the employment growth is slightly less than average. It's 8%, it's 1.4%. It's 70 employees per year. So, I mean, that would be good for Minto. It is a more conservative rate than the residential side. And just a word, these projections have to be made by the county. That there's a whole document that tells them how to do this work. And so these are, though, just projections. So things could vary considerably from this, but I think we would be worried if they were not allocating healthy amounts of residential and commercial growth to Minto. I think that would be a big concern, but that's not happening. And so I think, as the CAO said, things are going pretty well so far, but there's some issues that we want to keep an eye on. They do mention in the document that there is an oversupply of employment lands in the county. And specifically, if you get into the detail, there is a slight oversupply in Minto. When we asked about that at some of the meetings, they said that they weren't planning on down designating, in other words, taking industrial or commercial lands and putting them into some other category, or moving them from, say, Minto to some other location where they're undersupplied. But they do talk about a conversion policy where you could perhaps take employment lands that are commercial and put them in another designation. So we have to keep an eye on that policy too, because, well, you just don't know where that might take things once the detail starts coming out. Almost finished here. Since we started planning in Palmerston and Clifford with secondary plans, we talked about this hierarchy of settlement areas. And so if you look at the document closely, you can see what's happened here. They've definitely favored areas with municipal and sewer water, municipal sewer and water systems, and that's consistent with provincial policy. But they are also allocating a lot of growth to other municipalities who will grow at a higher rate, and that's great. That's good for those municipalities. But in some of the public comments coming out, you're hearing resistance in those communities to such high levels of growth. So what's interesting to me is if you put sort of firm boundaries on some of these projections and on the areas that are going to grow, and yet somehow these municipalities can't meet their targets or they start exceeding their targets, what will happen and how easy will it be able to change things in the plan? And I keep hearkening back to what we went through in Minto over 3 years to make a change in Palmerston. I don't think it should be as hard as that. I think it needs to be more fluid, and hopefully that will come out in the policy. One thing that isn't talked a lot about in there is, while municipal water and sewer has a high priority, they also have given a higher priority to communal services. And this really hasn't been talked about, to my knowledge, and even the CIO and I haven't really talked about it, but the opportunity for Pike Lake with the major communal systems there appears to have emerged with the 2019 and 2020 changes in provincial policy. It is almost, communal servicing is almost on the par with municipal servicing. So if Pike Lake isn't engaged, they should be having a look at this work and seeing. I know when I was still working there, they had expansion plans. I have no idea whether they still are thinking about that, but I just wanted to pass on word that that should come forward in here as well, that communal services are gaining more acceptance across the province. There's some maps in the report. You can see that they're the old boundaries of the urban areas. Those will need to be amended. And we haven't had really a discussion about the rural areas because, as it says, there is less of a focus of growth in rural. That's consistent with provincial policy. But what that means for Tiviotdale and Drew or Greenbush or, you know, the urban areas where Harkness is and so forth, those areas should be allowed to round out and infill. That's specifically allowed in provincial policy. And I'm not sure how that's going to materialize in the county's official plan. We put forward that argument to round out some of the unserviced areas of Palmerston, and they were lukewarm to that at best. So I think for the sake of these small rural communities in Minto, that we want to see a clear policy on there. And if they're going to be rigid with growth in the rural areas, then they definitely need to be more flexible in the urban areas, because I think this has to be more adjustable than it has been in the past. I think that's what was in provincial policy and some of the new changes they made in 2019 and 2020. So I'm interested to see that being flushed out in the as we go forward. So that's the end of my presentation. There's a recommendation there for you to consider, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Bill. Questions, Councillor Elliott? Sorry, Ron, you're muted there. There you
That's
go.
what I was trying to lip sync that I'm unmuting myself.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Hands were moving slow. Anyhow, Bill, thanks for the presentation. It was great. One of the questions we were talking about, rural communities, for example, Drew, Pike Lake, and so on, Thibodale. I know in at least I think I know about Gownstown, they're not allowed to put any more buildings there because they're only allowed so many weeping, their own sewer system. They can only place so much. Have we still got that kind of amounts, or, you know, like if all of a sudden at Pike Lake they're overridden, they've got too many, or is that such a thing? Or
Yeah,
how are we
so
handling that?
if I may, through you, Mayor Bridge, to
Yeah,
Councillor Elliott, servicing is a huge part of this. And so what the county has done is I believe they have a consultant that is talking to each local municipality about the status of the sewer and water systems in the urban areas. And Triton has been helpful with that process along with town staff in supplying information. And later this year, when the CEO believes it's ready and will be a report, and the engineers at Triton have completed all their work, there will be some information coming forward on that for Minto, so you can see the state of your municipal water and sewer in terms of meeting the growth. And the short answer is we're probably okay in Minto for the short term, and in the medium term, I'm talking 5 to 10 years, there's going to need to be some work done, especially if Palmerston grows the way it does.
Mhm.
So I mean, I don't think that's a surprise to you. I think we've talked about capacity there before. If Harrison grows with some of the major things that are being talked about there, and I don't know what's rumor and what's real, but I think there's a subdivision on there on your agenda tonight. But Harrison could have some issues come forward earlier rather than later. But overall, I think the county will say to you that in terms of Minto's municipal water and sewer, it's good, and you can meet your targets, and that will not be a reason to restrict growth.
But
As
septic tanks, Bill, excuse me, septic tanks in rural areas, is there a minimum of that, or what's
Right.
happening there?
So there isn't, as far as I know, there isn't a number that they put to it, all they're doing is basically discouraging it. So they feel that that's not and provincial policy states that's the last form of servicing that they like to encourage. There's some excellent systems out there now. So I think that that would be why I would be saying you need to be allowed to round out and infill on these areas. Tiviadale, for example, is one that it would be interesting to see what they come out with there. I don't know if you'll remember, but in Drew, when I was still working for the town, they cut those boundaries down quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that will be the less preferred form of servicing. You'll see less growth directed to rural areas. The county will probably not support some stuff in rural areas in the future as we go forward if they continue on this path.
So Pike
So
Lake and Tiviadale will be considered rural then, it wouldn't be considered urban?
Tiviadale would be. Pike Lake, you know, I haven't looked at what they're mapped at now, but they're communal. So I think they would have a higher status. And that's why I mentioned, I think there will be an opportunity here, and I think they should pay attention to this process if they still have expansion plans. And as I said, I don't know whether they do or don't, but
Sure.
So I think it's not a bad thing for Pike Lake right now, and it's less favorable for rural growth. And it's all about preserving natural areas and prime ag lands. That's
Thank
what
you. That's great. Thanks, Bill.
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor Turton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bridge and Bill. It's a pleasure again to listen to you. And I know that this town is extremely lucky to have you as our past CAO and also helping with this, you and Derek. When we talk about communal versus urban and rural, I mean, how do we change, or how do we look at the communal versus rural when we start talking? I mean, if we talk about septic and how rigid they are, the communal situation at Pike Lake is still septic. And
Yeah,
I know I
so-
don't want to put you on the hot seat, but
Yeah. So when we were there, in order for them to get their certificate of approval extended in Pike Lake, Minto had to sign an agreement that if there was failure there in that overall corporation, that the town would be there for that system. So that's how they're securing it. The Ministry of Environment is making sure that municipalities who are in theory are there forever are there to take over these systems if for whatever reason they were to fail. So I thought Pike Lake was a combined. They have septic systems, but they also have some communal systems there, and
yeah, they do.
those communal ones are the ones that
Yeah.
Minto is sort of on the hook for, but not really.
Mhm.
Septic systems, those are private, and so far they haven't required municipalities to take overall responsibility for those, just the communal ones.
So do you think that's going to happen, Bill? And again, I don't want you making predictions, but that's a big item.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I'm not sure. I really don't know where they're going to go. I was pleasantly surprised, actually really surprised to see them sort of increase the rank of communal systems. I was kind of surprised. That's when I say they, I mean the province. So I'm not quite sure where that's coming from, except that they're sort of pushing municipalities up behind those private communal systems to be there. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think that's good for Minto because that's a major taxpayer and a lot of people living out there. So if that were to fail, I think it would be incumbent upon the council at that time to be there for it. So that's why I suggested it, but I know there are municipalities that are not too keen on doing that. So you were able to, and we did get legal advice at the time. And
Mhm. Thank you.
Anybody else? I just have a couple comments, Bill, and it comes back to where I think you've got your eye on the ball on this, and so is Derek. What we don't want is that the province is sort of in I've been told and continuing on to try to loosen up some of these restrictions and rules. I would hate the county to bring restriction and rules in, and I don't want to slam planners, Bill, but they tend to want to put rules into things that they don't necessarily. The whole idea and going forward, and I've said this to the county too, is if the province is loosening up the rules in order for us to get attainable housing. We talked a bit about that, and the communal thing might be that maybe there's another trailer park type situation there that, as Jean has talked about a few times, that, you know, you could get a little bit less cost because you might not own the land, but like Pike Lake does with their Fairway Estates and stuff. So I think there's great opportunities, and the county is doing two things. They're doing this official plan and trying to do that and work with the new province rules. At the same time, we've got an attainable housing strategy going and trying to get that going as well. So we know we're got issues coming forward, and I think those two have to be tied in. So I really appreciate you being there, and Derek, and talking as we talk through this. And again, we went ahead a little bit ahead of time, and I kind of, there was some, at that public meeting, you heard there was some people saying, well, we're not getting as many and we don't get as much. And then other people are saying we don't want as much. So there's a little bit of work to be done here yet before it's all done and said and done in some of the townships. So I think this is a work in progress, and it's a good starting up report for us to do, but I think the council will keep a good eye on it. And the employment lands was another interesting one, in the sense that here we are, probably sold our last lot for employment lands in our industrial park in Palmerston. Right now, we have nothing left in Harrison. So I don't know where the surplus is, although I think one of our neighbors has 300 acres that they want to change from industrial to something else. So maybe that's where it's coming from. But I don't know where that extra employment land or surplus is, because I don't see it in Wellington County as surplus. Not certainly service land. So I don't know that comment, but I'm interested, and I'll keep an eye on this, because when we finish up what you did with us and work getting that Clifford, Palmerston, Harrison, and readjusting some of the things, that really helped us get a head start on some of the other groups that are waiting. And I think that allows us to keep moving forward. And I'm kind of excited at the numbers. I'm not overly displeased with the amount that they're allocating to Minto. So hopefully that we can continue with that. And Derek, that'll be your job to keep that on the go. So thanks for your report. And it's unfortunate. I assume you were still down south, because I did see some interesting birthday pictures and stuff like that. So when you do get back, we'll have to get together, and hopefully you get back soon.
Looking forward to it.
All righty. Anybody else got any more questions? Then I've got a really long thing. Should I read this whole thing, Annalene, or can I just say it's read?
I think you're okay not to read it all, as noted in the report.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor McKenzie. The council receives the July 7th, 2021 updated report 2 from the CAO and Triton Engineering regarding the status of municipal comprehensive review of the county official plan, and the council offers the following comments for consideration. And there's the report. And did I say moved by Councillor Elliott and second by Councillor McKenzie on that? Okay. Anybody opposed? Carried. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Safe travels.
Say hello to Terry.
I will. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Next up, I got Ashley. Where's Ashley? There she is. Go ahead, Ashley.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor Bridge and members of council. So the first report before you is regarding the draft plan of subdivision revision. So we haven't seen the conditions come through yet, but we did receive this notice of a revision a few weeks ago now. So this is regarding the Mexdev development, the subdivision down by the gas station on Aurora Street. And the main difference with this revision is that they're decreasing the units by 2. So 2 semi-detached units are being replaced with more stormwater management space, as well as a walkway and an increase in future development areas. So staff have reviewed the application, and Triton is currently in the process of finalizing the technical review. Once those technical aspects have been satisfactorily addressed, the county will then be bringing it to council for the draft plan of subdivision conditions, as well as the rezoning. So this is more just an update on where it's at, and that there is a reduction in the units, but town staff have not noted any concerns, and the review process is still underway.
Thanks, Ashley. And moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Deputy Mayor Turton. The Council of Town of Minto receives the planning technician's report for the draft plan subdivision revisions regarding 23T 2201 for MEX Developments Inc. for information. Any questions? Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you. Ashley, is there any word yet on when they're going to proceed with construction down there?
I know Max is really, really eager to get started, and most of their comments have been addressed. So Triton said it's just very few. So I would think, depending on the revision and their resubmission, potentially within a few months, you might see it come forward for their draft plan conditions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor McKenzie. Councilor Deputy Mayor Turton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bridge. So Ashley, where did this come from? Did the engineer decide that they needed more stormwater or?
That would be my assumption based, I mean, with the cost of real estate right now, I'm thinking no developer would want to lose 2 units. But then when you look at the increase, they did increase some of the future development lands, but it's mainly going to stormwater management. So I believe it's arisen from that technical review.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? My only comment is it's nice to see that it's almost 50% is town housing and semis, which is really important to moving forward. So I think it's a nice mix for the subdivision, and look forward, as Councilor McKenzie says, to them getting going on this as soon as they can. Great. Okay, anybody opposed? Carried. Okay. And what have I got next? Oh, this is Terry's going to present this, I believe. Go ahead, Terry.
I believe it is Ashley again.
Actually, you got another one? Oh, yes, you do. Sorry, Ashley. Yeah, go ahead.
So this one's also just for council's information. So on June 1st, the provincial government made a new single entity called the Ontario Land Tribunal. So that's made up of the former Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, the Environmental Review Tribunal, the Board of Negotiation, the Conservation Review Board, and the Mining and Lands Tribunal. So essentially their goal of doing this is to expedite the appeal process. So rather than having multiple hearings for one development, it would be all into one hearing. So it's going to eliminate the unnecessary overlap and streamline the process. They've also made a few other minor changes. From our end, it's mostly administrative changes. But when it gets to the appeal stage now, rather than requiring a case management conference for every appeal process, they can decide it on a case-by-case basis. And additionally, they now have more authority to dismiss an appeal, and the wording is if there is no reasonable prospect of success. So it gives them more authority, essentially. And one of the changes that is impacted in our notices that we send out is when you do an appeal now, you can only submit it via written. You cannot do it orally anymore. So that's a slight change as well. But most of that is at the appeal process stage, and they do lay it out quite well. Anything that was formerly in the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal or any of the other 4 remains as it was and essentially just gets rolled over with this new one. So they're not expecting any delays or anything like that.
Great, thank you, Ashley. Moved by Councilor Dirksen, second by Councilor Gutson. The Council of the Town of Minto receives the planning technician report regarding the new Ontario Land Tribunal for information. Any questions? I think this is great, and I like the fact that they've got a little bit more control. This is all we talked about, cutting red tape a little bit and delaying. So if somebody has a situation that really has no merit, or they can see that it doesn't have a planning merit going forward, they can stop it right there and not have to go through 6 months worth of appeals and everything, which takes away some of that concern that people do delay projects just for the sake of delaying rather than ever thinking they're going to win it. So I think this is good. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, now is Terry. Go ahead, Terry.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor Bridge and members of council. Town staff was approached by Golden Canadian Homes Incorporated to purchase our last remaining industrial parcel, which is located at the northwesterly end of the industrial park. So this parcel is located between the parcel we sold, which was the former certified site to Hammond Industries and Black Rose Reserve. It's approximately 3.6 there's any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Okay, just had a little hiccup in a recording there, so I think we're all right, Annalene, are we? We might have
Yes,
missed a
we
little
can
bit there.
continue. We can continue. Yes.
All right, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Turton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bridge. Terry, some of that stuff that you were saying was kind of hard to understand. So if I'm asking questions, did I hear you say that the industrial mall, what is it going to look like? Have you seen a picture of the industrial mall? Will there be different sized industries or businesses out of there? And did I hear you say that they're all sold out?
So the building itself, we have not seen plans for. So I don't know size of units or anything like that. What I mentioned about completely sold out would be the industrial park itself.
Gotcha.
This would be the last parcel we have available.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Terry, we'll have to see site plans and everything. We haven't got that yet. This is just for sale of the property, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councillor Elliott. The Council of Town of Minto receives the July 13th, 2021 report for the Business Economic Manager regarding the agreement of purchase and sale for the Golden and Canadian Homes, Inc. for 345 Minto Road in Palmerston Industrial Park, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement of purchase and sale. Anybody opposed? Carried. Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Terry. Gord?
All right, thank you, Mayor Bridge. So this is a very similar report than one we just had not very long ago. It's regarding funding for the enhancements to the Clifford Celebration Square. We just put in the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative grant, and Belinda noticed the Canada Community Revitalization Fund, and it has very similar objectives in that. The earlier grant we put in for the second intake. The first intake was very oversubscribed. They only had enough money to fund 10% of the applications. So even though we are confident, this is a good plan B, I think. So basically, it wasn't a lot of work to modify our application, and this application is due on July 23rd. So we need to get authority to put it in if you so desire.
Okay, I'll read the move by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Anderson. The Council of Town of Minto receives the Treasurer's Business Economic Manager's report and endorse the application for enhancements to the Clifford Rotary Celebration Square under the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. Anybody opposed? Never hurts to have one more bullet in your, or sorry, arrow in your quiver or whatever, I guess.
Yeah, bullet in your gun. No.
Right, that's passed. Thank you.
All right.
And I believe you're up again.
I'm up again. Yep. This is another kind of a good news story, I think. You're probably aware of a building that was in quite a bit of disrepair at the corner of Main Street and James Street near the CIBC in Palmerston. And thankfully, we had a new developer come along and totally improve that building. Now, part of it was he put a new surface cladding on the one wall. And we had erected historical images, much like the ones in the council chambers, actually. And they looked good. Part of the All Aboard Palmerston committee, Mark and Connie Robinson, took custody of those murals and images, and they stored them until we could find a suitable place. And I believe that we have that. We're looking at the side, the Jane Street side of the Blessings to You building. And basically, we'd like to put those murals back up again. Cost roughly $1,500, and certainly appreciate Mark and Connie for looking after them in the meantime.
Yep, thank you, Gord. And I'll move by Councillor Elliott, second by Deputy Mayor Turton. The Council of the Town of Minto receives the Business and Economic Managers Palmerston Historic Images Mural Agreement report and considers a bylaw in regular session authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the mural agreement and in the town of Palmerston. Anybody opposed? It's nice that we kept them, and they're nice, and that wall is going to be good coming in from the other side. That's going to work. Anybody opposed? Carry. Okay, good. I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Turton. We'll
Yeah,
assume
thank you, Mayor Bridge. Our Treasurer Gord, you're a very busy guy today. Can you enlighten us a little bit on the grant allocations, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Turton. So as we've mentioned in the past, the province and the federal government have been very good in helping out municipalities cope with the whole COVID situation. So one of the grants was initially called the Safe Restart Agreement, and that was a federal provincial program. And I think we brought a report to council a few months ago. That was originally 289,600, and we either spent or allocated 164,000 in 2020, as outlined in the schedule. So we carried forward 125,000 for that one. And then the province kind of did a complementary funding top up to that one called the COVID-19 Recovery Fund. And that's going to be 155,000. We've received half of it on May the 1st, and the second half will be on November the 1st. Very similar. It's to do direct expenses such as, PPE and building modifications. And the part that I like is they've given a lot of authority to the council. You set the priorities, and I know that we have constantly identified that we want to support our business and our nonprofit and volunteer sector. So we're able to support them more through this. So basically, we've spent about the 150 some thousand, leaving us with 253,000 of the combined Safe Restart and COVID-19 recovery. And we've kind of put forward some proposals. Basically about 100,000 of that to support our businesses, perhaps through direct support, perhaps to soften the blow of some of our changes to our upcoming water, wastewater billing process. Some more enhancements for the trail. Again, we always want to be improving our trails, and I think the mantra over the last couple of years, outside good, the inside maybe not so good. So anything we can do to support physical activity, getting outside and doing that. So we've estimated about 50,000 for that. The aforementioned grant for the Clifford community thing, again, placemaking, gathering places and that. We were proposing to fund the Minto town share of that, roughly 28.5, depending on actuals from that. The Palmerston splash pad, again, we want to make it more environmentally friendly and more inviting. I know our residents really like that facility and hopefully be back up. So we're forecasting about $30,000 to upgrade that, make it more friendly. Touchless fixtures, I think that is going to be a lasting impact of the pandemic, just from public health, hygiene. I think, gosh, it's got to be almost 20 years ago, I was in Scandinavia, and my goodness, like touchless, automatic doors, everything, they were there, and I think we're gradually getting there. So it's going to be more sanitary. If we can do more cases, you don't have to turn on the light switch, you don't have to fiddle with the tap and that. So allocating another 25,000 for that. And on the water conservation, environmentally friendly viewpoint, water filling stations, they certainly sprang up in the last few years at large events when we had them. Kind of like you bring your own container, you have a big tank, and instead of selling the little water bottles and creating more litter everywhere, this would be a thing. So those are our proposals, and we're certainly open to any suggestions. And I combined this report with the Municipal Modernization Grant. This one, it's, I think the first round came in 2019, and it is basically to improve the functioning of the municipality. So we have done about $245,000 in 2019 and 2020, bit of reorganization, some capital improvements, and covered a bit of a funding shortfall on another unconditional grant. So bottom line, we have about $330,000 to allocate. So we've got a few proposals here. The fire department, I believe our chief presented to you a while ago. There's some new software that will be more modern and streamline the reporting, get rid of a lot of the make work and the data entry, and that's for $35,000. We're working away. One of our top priorities is bringing in the multi-year budgeting software and a lot of other enhancements. It's proven to be a very large technical project, so we're saying about $60,000 for that. We also want to continue with the never-ending asset management, improve stewardship, improve our GIS. We've been talking a lot with the county, and also we have a working group. Just again, we have the basics. I think we're like 80% there, but getting that final 20% to make sure that our locations for our water and sanitary pipes and roadways and street lights, hydrants and all that, just where they are, and trying to integrate them a bit more. So we have $75,000 for that. Good example of what we're doing today. Hopefully we'll get back to in-person, but it's good to have the option for hybrid. And I know between Matt and Annaline and Quinn, they've done the best we've got with our kind of Chevy equipment here. But I think going forward, especially if we're going to try and engage the public more electronically, I think we could deal with, better microphones and better facilities and that. So roughly $20,000 for that. And then just a review of our enterprise software. Are there any more efficiencies we can do? Are there ways that we can get staff and council better information in a less labor intensive fashion? So still that leaves us with 100. And I know just earlier today, our community services manager had something of a small software. It's only a little over $2,000, but it'll help gathering contact information and that. Again, a really good thing. And if we had known about this, we could have done a lot of this 2 years ago. But anyway, that's what we're proposing. Kind of a high level view, but happy to answer anything or take any.
Thank you, Treasurer Duff. Any questions for, go ahead, Councillor McKenzie. Then you, Councillor Dirksen.
Thank you. Gord, you mentioned you've allocated all of this or most of it, but you mentioned there nonprofit support and leisure activity projects. Who gets the say on that? Does it come back to council, or who's going to allocate that money for those?
Well, a lot of it, again, between the Culture Roundtable and the PRAC committee. So if you remember the Culture Roundtable, just an example, we said, well, all these groups are having difficulty meeting virtually. We could get them Zoom Pro accounts. So that was one we didn't do too much of. We've also given rent credits. Most of it we've gotten back, but like say for the theater group and the dance academy, like they've had no money. So we've done some rental forgiveness there. Again, our minor hockey and figure skating, broomball, some of our major clients, again, they're dependent on fees that come from parents primarily. And if they're not delivering the service, they don't have any money, yet there's still costs in that. So it's basically that kind of thing that's being talked both at the Culture Roundtable.
But to actually allocate the money to those specific things that is it done through cultural roundtable, or is it comes back to council for approval?
Excuse me, CAO Thompson, do you want to comment?
Sure.
Yes, thank you, Chair Turton. To Councillor McKenzie's question. Any requests that we get from minor sports groups or any other community group will come back to council for approval. So what Treasurer Duff is talking about is setting aside a pot of money to help out our community groups.
Sure.
And I use that term widely, community sports groups, right? Arts and culture groups. We anticipate we'll get some requests for some assistance. We'll gather those requests and we'll bring them to council for approval.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Gord. Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Councillor Dirksen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Turton. I was looking at the proposed 2021 allocation and subsidies to high water users and top up to business support. So I'm wondering, high water users, like, is it going to be just oh, you use hot water, you use a lot of water, so here's your allocation or whatever, or is there going to be some look at whether or not they are in a situation where they need some assistance, or is it just going to be carte blanche? I guess I'm kind of interested in that, because I'm thinking there's lots of businesses that don't use very much water at all, but they could be in worse shape than somebody who's a high water user.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
CAO
Chair.
Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Turton, to Councillor Dirksen. Councillor Dirksen, if I take you back to when we approved the new water rate structure, there was also a recommendation that staff would look at a potential phase-in of the industrial users that were getting a very large increase in the blocks that they use. So this is just a subsequent item on that to say, we'll incorporate this money potentially in some type of allocation to help offset those increases, to help phase it in over the period of time. So this is just sort of an accompaniment to that report that we're still working on how we might do it. And this is a potential funding source for how we might do it.
That's exactly it. This is a very high level earmarking, I would say.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Turton. I'm just wondering, is it going to be an application? Will people apply, or will you search the out, or how are we going to do this?
Yeah, I'll speak to the Culture Roundtable. Yes, it was an application based, and as our CEO has said, we're going to look at the water more intensively. Council, as you say, when we change structure, and I imagine on the recreation on PRAC, it's the same kind of thing. There's going to be criteria, and I know Matt had some thoughts on how they would look at that. And again, we're kind of staying flexible because we don't exactly know how much money or what effects. A lot of what we're doing, it's support, it's moral support and broadcasting. But we did have to set aside some just if we did have to do direct subsidies or rent forgiveness or that.
I would assume a lot of user groups, probably more than what you'd want, are going to apply with that. Will they have to have some sort of background or some sort of business plan that shows that they are in need of that money, over who you may have to turn somebody down in order to give to someone else.
Exactly. So. Yeah, exactly. You want to show how has your difficulty be caused by the COVID situation, and how will this happen, and what is your plan for future sustainability?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mayor Bridge.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Turton. And I thought lots of good questions, and the report was supposed to be general, and it was general in a sense. We don't want to get tied down too much in some good points. I mean, I was amazed that some of the organizations that thought might have suffered more than they did actually didn't suffer as badly. So it'll be interesting to see who comes to the plate and asks for it. But I think we have that flexibility, and we have a couple of different groups that can funnel it to the council. But at the end of the day, the council will make the decisions based on what the best need is and where we can put this money out. And I have to give both the federal and provincial governments a lot of credit here. Gord, I mean, if we didn't have this, I mean, it's a luxury we have, and we're going to put it back into a situation where we get the best bang for our buck as well, and make sure that our groups are whole at the end and whatnot. So I think it's just a great idea from both the province and the feds that bring this money back down to the municipalities to deliver it. And without it, as you know, our budget situation wouldn't have been near as solid as it is. And that's not only at our town level, it's at the county level as well. And at the county level, we got some money set aside as well to possibly do more help for businesses as we move forward and see if we can gear up and go. And let's just pray that this is our last shutdown and that we can actually get everything going back. And, you know, the minor hockey, the sports groups, the cultural groups, I mean, they all can get up and running again. They'll all be happy and they'll be able to get a lot of their revenue streams coming back into play. But I have to give a lot of people credit. They did a lot of fundraisers. I mean, these pickup meals and other things that everybody seemed to come up with different ways to probably keep things going. And I don't know, Ron, I mean, the Lions Club kept their projects going. They kept doing it. The Kinsman, the Rotary Club, you know, their fundraisers are somewhat restricted, but they come up with ways to do it still. And I just give everybody a lot of credit. So I like it. It's a good report, Deputy Mayor Turton, through to Gord, that gives us some flexibility going forward. But the final decision, some of the bigger items will come back to us. So thanks for the report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Me as well, Gord. I mean, this is very well thought out. So for yourself and your staff. I mean, there's a lot to think about here, and it sounds to me like you guys have thought about ahead. And I don't know, how can we thank the provincial and federal government? How do we send them a thank you, or do we just assume that this is? And I know, Mayor Bridge, that you guys have been through FCM, have been hammering on them quite a bit, and here they're coming through. They seem to be coming through, and so somehow we need to thank them for that. So yeah, thank you for the work you're doing with FCM as well, and congratulations.
I believe, Gord, we have sent congratulation notes back to the ministers in charge. So we never, when we do get a handout or get something back, we always try to respond back in a positive frame. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to the bureaucrats too. They've been very good at say coming on to a treasurer's call or that, and they'll talk about these things. And you know, they're learning too, and some of this guidance. And you know, we often expect it to be very prescriptive, and they kept hammering home, no, it's up to your council. You decide what to do. And yeah, we really appreciate that.
Other questions for Treasurer? Seeing none, then our recommendation then moved by Mayor Bridge, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the Treasurer's Safe Restart Agreement and the Municipal Modernization 2021 allocations report, and directs the staff to allocate funds as outlined in the report. I guess part of this is there's money left over.
That's
so
true.
And so if there's no other questions, anybody against this motion? That motion is carried. And Gord, I'm glad you got a haircut. It looks good on you. So as we move along to the first quarter Treasurer's report, we're going to ask Mr. Potter to give this, correct, Gord? So
yes, that's right. Mark
welcome.
worked hard on this, so we're going to let him guide you through the first 3 months. We've had this ready to go, but in the interest of keeping agendas lighter and other meetings, we're saving it till the summer. Think of the way.
Thank you, Gord. So Mark, welcome to the meeting today, and this is the first quarter report. So would you please take it away?
Well, thank you very much, Chair Turton. Before Council this afternoon is the 2021 first quarter financial review. As Treasurer Duff indicated, this report has been ready to go for a while and would normally be in front of Council in May. However, due to wanting to keep some agendas a little shorter, we have deferred this until this meeting here.
Just a few highlights from the report. For both the tax supported and non-tax supported budgets, expenditures and revenues are in line with historical trends. The first installment of the interim taxes was due on March 29th, and the town has surpassed the anticipated revenue amount. Appendix A summarizes the net operating results ending March 31st, 2021. And council probably notices a couple of large numbers in the appendix. Most of the budget variances can be explained by the lack of seasonalization, where we have a operation that operates a certain period of time, for example, outdoor pools. However, the budget for that operation would be seasonalized over a period of 12 months. This problem of seasonalization will be addressed in 2022 with the use of the new budgeting software being implemented later this year. There are also some larger variances shown in Appendix A, and there are explanations to those on the bottom part of page 2 of the report. First quarter capital spending was approximately $613,000, with the construction season ramping up in the second quarter of 2021. We have included a few capital highlights at the bottom of page 2 of the report. And as we have in the past, last year, Finance will be bringing forward future quarterly reports for Council's review. And that is my summary, Chair Turton, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm sure there'll be lots. Thank you, Mark. Questions for Mark? I mean, that's a great report as well. I mean, that's easy to read, easy to understand. So you're no questions. You're getting off very easy.
I just make
Sorry?
a comment.
Do you mind if Councillor Anderson goes first?
Oh, go ahead. I just see her up there. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you for that report. I've been asking for a report like this for quite some time, and I understand that they're time consuming. You need the right software to work it, but this gives me a much better perspective on where we're at, and you don't have as many surprises. Not that Gord didn't always have the answers, but it seemed a shame to always rely on Gord because we're going, can we do this? Can we not do this? So this just gives me more information to work with and allows me to help make better decisions for council as a whole. So thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mayor Britt.
Yeah, and then similar to what Councilor Anderson was saying, this is coming. This report is coming along, and I'm really looking forward to the software, because the other thing that always, you know, kind of problems in any area, and we've got good treasurers, and they will probably bring that to us, but just in case, we're making decisions based on where we are and where our variances are. So I really enjoy this report, and I know, Gord, if we'd have known it only take this many questions, we could have had it earlier, but who knew, eh? And so but I'm on a regular quarterly basis, this would be a great report to have, and looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Just quickly, I noticed that we got a report that tells you exactly what we're budgeting. It would maybe a good idea, or I don't know whether it's possible or not, for our Treasury Department to give it a recommendation where we could ease on some of the expenses. I don't know. Is that a possibility, or is that just all political, all council decisions?
Through you, Chair Turton, to the councillor, budget decisions are brought forward to council on an annual basis, and the staff in Minto goes through their budgets line by line and tries to identify areas of savings in expenditures, as well as possibilities for increased revenues. So that is an ongoing process that staff does in looking and monitoring their budgets on a continual basis.
So if we see council has made error in overspending in such areas as whatever, and your Treasury Department sees that, Could you bring that to us? And is it possible for us to make that budget change?
I guess a good example, Councillor Elliott, and hopefully we don't do this, but we've had years where we have a really terrible winter. And I know we've done this a couple of times ago. We spend 120% of our winter control in April.
Right.
And what we have done in the past, we've said, well, we have a lot of road maintenance that we need to do, but maybe we better cut back a little. And I know Mike has done that. And that's probably an obvious example. I know we have brought that to council in the past, and we'll certainly be alert for those kind of situations again. But as Deputy Treasurer said, it's kind of a constant process, and you're always on the lookout to do things better or get some more funding.
Thank you.
CAO Thompson, do you have something to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Turton. Just in corresponding with the Deputy Treasurer to Councillor Elliott. So correctly said is that Council establishes the budget annually. However, when the whole purpose of reviewing expenditures monthly, staff identify areas of concern, and myself as the CEO direct department heads to either cut back to come in within their budget allocated amounts or not. So we like to look at it over a 12-month period. We don't like to look at cutting program mid-month because you never know what might happen. It could be a blimp. And I think it's been well said throughout the course of the discussion on this report about seasonalization. It's very difficult to make in-year budget changes when we're not seasonalizing expenditures in the appropriate way. For example, I know Councillor Anderson, her keen eye is always on people and property and those large amounts of money. And that's because all our fees to our conservation authorities, those big one-time fees come out in that quarter, and we seasonalize those amounts. So it looks like one big hit in 1 month, right? So you're really not getting that detailed information enough to make in-month budget changes. And I wouldn't recommend council do that anyway. It's a 12-month process. As far as over expenditures go by month, I review them with the Treasury Department once a month because I get a report that shows us where we are, and it's my job to keep everybody on budget. So I do talk to them and make recommendations to them to either scale back or adjust so that in the event that we can make sure we meet our budget every year.
Thank you, CAO Thompson. Any other questions? So when the council gets out of, or the budget gets out of whack, the responsible guy there, he just admitted that he's the responsible one. So no, just kidding, Eric. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
I just have a question in regards to that then. So if you were going through the budget as you're doing and you're reviewing it and you see that a department is over by 15% or 20% due to winter roads is a good example. We never know exactly what the winter is going to bring to us, and the roads have to be cleared. If there was a need, and in the same time, say we noticed that, I don't know, fire trucks, they lasted a lot longer, so we've got a bit of more money in that budget. Would those changes would you be able to switch money from one department to another internally, or would that have to come to council for a decision, or would it be talked about at council at all?
CAO Thompson.
For you, Deputy Mayor Turton, absolutely, we cannot change money like that independently. We have to come to council to make those types of changes.
Because I mean, and that's good to know, because sometimes that happens. There's just one department that can't help. There's an extra expense. And before, we always counted on Gord to tell us, well, we're going to do some of this. And I think it's better that it's more transparent like this, and we all have that information ahead of time. So once again, thank you for this. This is very, very helpful for me.
Mayor Bridge.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Councilor Anderson. One of the things, and Derek talked about it, was we have a really good set of department heads, and when they're doing budgets and even ongoing, they cooperate. They sit around every week, have a department head meeting, and they do talk about different things. And when they're doing the budgets, I know Gordon, Mark, you work with them, and sometimes somebody gets a little bit more one year and somebody has to give up a little bit more to get us to where we are. And I have to look back at our history, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gord, but I don't think we've ran over budget that I can remember.
No, not like as Councillor Anderson said, winter control, I can always that too, because that is one, and if we do, we kind of compensate.
Yeah, and we do have a little reserve set aside that we can, like a taxation reserve. So I mean, I have to give the staff a lot of credit and the councils a lot of credit that over the years we budgeted fairly well and we've kept within our budget. So it tells me that if given a little bit more software, we can get a little bit more quick reports. And the nice thing about the reports, not only do we get them, the public gets them through our council meetings. So that's very important too, that they see that transparency, that what's going on. So keep it up, keep up the great work, and turn it back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks again, Mark and Gord, for these reports. They're extremely important to us and our ratepayers. So there's no other questions. The recommendation is moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Mayor Bridge, that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the report from the Treasurer dated July 6th, 2021 regarding the 2021 first quarter financial review. Is anybody all in favor? Sorry, anybody against this motion? Then it's carried. Thank you very much. And I'll pass the chair back to our mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Turton. And I'll turn it over to Quinn. And Quinn's going to bring a report on legislation and human resources services. Go ahead, Quinn.
Yeah, all right. So the previous sale and disposition of land bylaw that
I saw her there.
we are.
There she is.
Can you hear me?
She's moving very slowly.
Quinn was having some issues with internet, but it looks like she might be working out here. Hold on.
Hey, God.
That's slow motion.
Yeah, yeah. I think there was a Star Trek thing that they were in another dimension that they.
Not the way they did that.
That's how they did it.
Yeah.
View of it.
Okay.
I think Quinn's pretty well. Quinn's been working on, yeah. Okay. And I am re-recording the meeting again. Quinn, are you able to, it looks like Quinn is back on. And hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Right.
So I think it looks like you are.
Okay.
I'm just speaking to the meeting anyways.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Quinn.
Am I good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah, you were kind of slow motion there.
You're all good now.
What's going on? Okay.
All
Go ahead.
right. All right. So I have been working on the sale and disposition of land bylaw. So the previous one was passed and amended in the first half of 2008. So it's around 13 years old at this point, and it's pretty outdated. So as part of our bylaw review for this year, we chose to update it and work on the procedures. So most noticeably, we modernized the portion of the bylaw regarding providing notice to the public. So it used to be required that notice be given by running a single publication in a local newspaper for a minimum of 2 weeks. But the new bylaw provides for additional, more modern options to provide notice. We have all these really great municipal websites and social media accounts that we would love to be able to utilize for things like this. So we also put in provisions for things like real estate websites and even the traditional for sale sign. Other updates included a more comprehensive section regarding exempt classes of land and environmentally impacted land, so things like the industrial park, as well as some additional options for the actual sale of the land, including going to public auction or using a tender process rather than just providing notice and waiting for offers. So I think that is it. It's, yeah, just a quick update to the bylaw. So I'm happy to answer any questions as long as I can stay on here.
All right. We're getting, hang in there. Moved by Councillor Gutson, second by Councillor McKenzie. The Council of Town of Minto receives the July 13, 2021 report from the Coordinator, Legislative and Human Resources Services regarding the updated sale and disposition of land bylaw and considers the bylaw in regular session. So questions, comments? Go ahead, Councillor Turkson.
I think this is a great idea. This is, I think it is important and it keeps us more transparent and tries to let the public know a little bit more about what's going on. Yeah, I think given a situation we are kind of still dealing with, it's good to kind of streamline this and yet give more opportunity for people to notice what council is contemplating. So thanks for your work on it, Quinn.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councilor Dirksen. I think that unfortunately, everybody read the newspaper a few years ago, but that's not the case anymore. A lot of people don't even see it, the newspaper, don't want to look at it or whatever. So having these other options gives a lot more flexibility and gets it out to everybody. And nobody can come back later and say, oh, sorry, I didn't see it. And then have that problem. So anyways, sounds good. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, great. Thanks for all that work on that, Quinn. Okay, so we're at other businesses disclosed, and I think I had Ron. Do you want to go first? And then you have to unmute, Ron.
Getting faster.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bridge. Just a couple of things. First one is, I wonder if we know when I know our water tower is painted and I know it's got a lot of water in it. I just wonder when we can start lift our water ban, when it's going to be operating and splash pad and all that stuff.
I think Derek can answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly can. I finally just got off the phone with Todd Rogers not 3 minutes ago. And we're getting very close. The tower is full. We're just checking our levels. So I think we're hopeful for tomorrow morning. Todd's going to just check it again, and it should be very, very shortly.
Great. And they'll let us know, like they'll let the public know somehow, because I get a lot of questions. Certainly won't be getting it today, but a lot of questions about water.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we certainly will use all our social media channels to get that word out and post on our website. But I don't want to speak for Mr. Rogers. He's done so much hard work on this as it is right now. He's very, very close.
He's been on and off the phone a lot every day. So
we don't want to jinx it.
Done great work, and it looks great, by the way. The company did a great job, and they worked very hard on it.
Yeah.
Secondly, I just got a call today again, and it's about fireworks in our community. It's not just Canada Day, it's not just 24th of May, it's whenever they feel they want to set off some fireworks. Quite often they're done in the park here. This was one lady phoned me today, as a matter of fact, and you know, she's very concerned about that. It scares the heck out of dogs and animals. And a couple of years ago, as you know, a dog jumped over a fence and got ran over by a car because they were so afraid. I know we have 3 dogs next door, and their family gets them into the house right away when they get up. I just don't know whether you have any control of that. She was also saying about Syrian children that they were just shaking one day. She works with kids, and the one little girl was just shaking because she had no idea what was going on. And from the bombs when she was in her country and stuff, I guess it scared the heck out of her. So, I mean, it's just spontaneous, and it could be anywhere, anytime. And I'm sure across the community, everybody has that, not just Palmerston. I wonder if there's any way we can create a bylaw that we can at least fine somebody or charge somebody or try and stop, just regulate when they can have fireworks and when they can't. I'm not sure whether that's a possibility or not. I'm not sure who can answer that for me, but I think it's crazy. You never know when they're going to let the fireworks off.
I'll let Derek talk to that. And I know there's been discussion around the department head table on this, Ron. Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Elliott, this is not a unique problem to every municipality in Ontario, to be honest. Fireworks bylaws are common in mostly highly dense municipalities. They range from indicating what particular holiday they will allow, what locations they will allow. But my caution is, like everything else, creating a bylaw and trying to enforce it in a wide geographic community like such as Minto is difficult to say. And then you start getting into the conversation around, well, what holidays or what days do you want to be able to allow it? So can it be done? Yes. Is it successful in stopping the problem? Somewhat. I don't know if it's completely successful in doing that. But it can be done. It can be written. But again, we're it's only as good as we can enforce it. So,
is it possible that even if we stopped one and there was a fairly large fine or something that would happen, that might deter other groups from doing it, even if we caught only one or two? Or I'm not sure. And how do you know that at 9 o'clock tonight somebody's going to be in my backyard letting off fireworks? Or walking down the street, they walk down the street and shoot them,
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to your point, like trying to find somebody, have enough evidence to charge them is a conversation. It's difficult. We don't set the fines. The province would set the fines. So it's not like we could say, okay, if we catch you, you're going to pay $10,000. I mean, the province will set the fines, and historically, you don't usually see big fines. And then, quite frankly, you also have a business issue that people that sell them. So, if you could look at a potential moratorium on fireworks in local businesses, but that doesn't mean you could go to Mount Forest or Listowel or anywhere else and pick them up on your way in, kind of thing. So is it possible to do? Yes. Is it successful? I'm not so sure. And then we've got a real enforcement, I think, issue with it as well.
Maybe we could do some kind of advertising or some kind of marketing to ask people if they would deter from doing that.
Well, I think, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think certainly that's a fabulous idea. I think let me go back and work with our social media folks and see if we can't come up with some type of campaign that before a holiday weekend that asks people to be respectful and be considerate of others.
Yes.
I think that may be a first very good step. And I think that's a great idea. So if I could, by I guess a nodding of heads, get an agreement from council to go ahead, we'll work on that.
Sure.
And hopefully we can see how it works out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe come back with that report, and that might, at least the community will know that we're working towards trying to solve a problem, and I believe it's a problem.
I don't know if are you asking for a report, Ron, or you want?
Well, yeah, he's going to come back with what he's doing, what kind of a campaign, I would think.
Let's just get out the campaign and get it going. We got a holiday coming up, and maybe we can work around that. The next long weekend, we can say, and a little bit of it is, to be honest with you, I've talked to a few other mayors on this. We're not alone in this, Ron.
Sure, I know that.
Issues, and a little bit of it is when everybody was stuck with COVID, like they did more in their backyards than they ever did before, because they didn't have big fireworks displays when they went out, and they were all canceled, right? So, and what I'm really worried about too, and I don't know, Jeff and Chris isn't on the call, but some of these fireworks are getting to be very large. I mean, like we could buy what they call a cart now or whatever, and you light them off, and they go for 20 minutes. You light one match on it. And then there's other ones, these big cakes that they're very dangerous. I mean, if anything happens, that they don't light them right. So I think this is something that provincial governments have to look at too. But when you put restrictions into anybody's situation, that's hard. But let's get a campaign going out there. I totally agree with you. I think we have to try to get people to be more considerate. I had a dog that used to try to dig the basement's floor up when the fireworks went off, and it was sad. And she would just, but back then it was only a few times a year, so it wasn't too bad, right? But
Right.
now it seems you're right. I totally agree. But let's see what we can do on some kind of campaign and see if we can get some respect out there for everybody.
And the
Mr.
public
Mayor.
might feel a lot more comfortable that we've done that. And
Yep.
maybe-
No, I
maybe-
totally
but I'm
agree.
not asking for a report as much as maybe Derek
An
after
action.
6 months come back and say, it did resolve a lot of it, or it didn't do anything. We could do that.
Yeah, and there's gonna be not just us in this, there's gonna be other people talking about it. So we'll see if there's any silver bullet out there, but
Mr. Mayor, Khalees is on the line if you wanted to ask.
there is Cleese. Yeah, thanks, Cleese. Yeah, if you had any concern, Cleese, about some of these bigger units that causing fires or anything too? I mean, they're getting pretty powerful, some of this stuff, right? We never were able, like, we have small little things we could throw off, but some of these are amazing.
Right. Yeah, so to your point, there are fireworks seem to be getting bigger and better and stronger. But to Derek's point, we don't have a bylaw that dictates either way what you can have for fireworks. Funny you've mentioned this. Cam and I have actually been going back and forth on fireworks, as we do receive quite a few complaints about them. And in doing some research in other municipalities, some of them have things like permits that you have to take out and check with the fire department before you can set off fireworks. And they do have like a set of rules as to the fireworks, types of fireworks that are allowed. There are things like cherry bombs and stuff that are not really suitable for in town, for lighting off in town.
Yeah.
So a lot of like the major city centers have gone to kind of like a set of rules in regards to fireworks and what types of fireworks you can let off. So that's definitely something we can look at. But yeah, right now without a bylaw, it's up to the OPP to enforce. And all we can do is educate on the dangers of fireworks. So
yeah, maybe we'll maybe work with you as well on some of the dangers, because I'm not just concerned about the fact that they're lighting them off, but people are doing them with little training, if any, and some pretty wild stuff that they can be. And I don't want it in somebody's backyard, and all of a sudden you have an issue. So
yeah, for sure.
I think, Derek, if we can work on it, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Khalees and I will work on it.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ron? You good?
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, Jean.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, Jean.
Sorry.
There you are.
I don't have anything, it's not major, but as I said, I haven't been traveling around much with COVID and with my work schedule, but I did get around town last weekend, I think. Just kudos to the staff for the way the towns look, and all the stuff, the rec department, the Paul Judge and his crew, Belinda and the Harrison Rising and the Palmerston, the little metal cutouts. The flowers are amazing. The places look like the type of spot you want to stop and take a look at. It's and as I believe it was Dave Griffey, was it? The 10 ways to kill your town, or the 10 best ways. And he talked about one of the best ways is to ignore the town and just let it be. It looks great. So just my congratulations to everybody for their hard work. And by the way, the surface of Minto line 3 looks great right now too. So thank you to Mike. I don't know how that happened, because I thought it was the other side being paved. And I know it's my road that I drive on, but nothing partial. It's just the road I travel on most. It's marvelous, but the town looks great. So thank you to everybody and all their efforts. It truly shows their dedication and their work ethic, and it just looks really, really good. So if you would pass that on to all of the department heads and their staff, I just had to give a shout out, because it's just good work.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Okay, and Jeff.
Thanks, Mayor Bridge. Well, maybe one thing. So as the traffic through Harrison is getting to be more and more, I find the big struggle now is parking at Tim Hortons. And I just wondered, I know I've talked to Derek a lot about this, and the OPP only can do so much. Is there anything else that can be done to stop people from parking where they can't? I tried to get out on Saturday morning. Man, it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. So I didn't know if there was something else. I know at one time there was barriers out there, but I don't know. Is there other options we can look at other than calling the OPP and relying on them?
Derek?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Councillor Gunson's correct. I have been in correspondence with the OPP for several months around around this issue. I'm thinking that if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, that we'll refer this back to myself, and I'll work with Terry and Mike and see if there is something else we can do. I know in other communities they do some type of barrier around the shoulder, particularly the breakaway ones. But let me take it back and see if there's anything further we can do. You know, as I travel through town on the weekend, it is an issue for sure. So let me take it back and see what I can come up with.
Yeah, and Derek, you'll find that, and Jeff is right, Council Gunston's right. We did at one time put barriers. We tried putting stop signs, no parking signs, but they just ran over those. So we put the barriers up. I sat there with the sergeant one day at that spot, and as we were sitting there talking about what we might be able to do, a guy pulls in with his boat and everything, gets out of the car and bangs into the no parking sign while he did it. So, and then he went in to get his stuff, and like, I go, whoa. Anyways, but we did put barriers up, and you know, I think because of COVID, we probably, Council Gunston, it wasn't quite as bad, but now with COVID again, the traffic is back to where it was, and we might have to look at it. So good question. Okay, anybody else? I got a couple. Just one, and we won't have another meeting before we won't have another meeting before the Mayor's Golf Tournament, and it's filling up, but I think we're up to about 28 teams. I think we can do 34, so we got to the end of the week. So if you know of anybody that wants to do it, I know the minor hockey and the Palmerston Public School, they're looking for doing playground stuff. They're the two charities this year, and we're getting good results from people donating and putting a whole sponsors in and everything. So it looks good for both those groups, and let's just have a good time and get your teams in. And then one last thing I just want to bring up, and I see that Wellington Advertiser has printed a story on it, if you get a chance to look at it. But as you know, as you were aware of it, that just happened on Friday, that our one situation with the Quality Homes and the subdivision in our old high school public school area was finally settled. And I must say, I'm really pleased with the settlement. I really felt that Terry, I don't know he's on the call or not, yeah, he is, took a lot of abuse, and the judge vindicated his expertise and his ability to look at the rules and regulations, and of course we won the suit. So I'm just quite pleased that that's the way it went. And I'm unfortunately that this happened. It lasted for a couple of years. I just wish that people would, I don't know what we could have done any better. This council was very obliging all the way through, and I give you a lot of credit for hanging in there. But again, I just want to say that Terry should feel better today than he did leading up to this, where he took a lot of abuse for his reputation. And when you're a building inspector, that's your whole life is around your reputation. It's very important to keep your reputation, and people trust you and what your thoughts are and how you interpret the law. So anyways, that's all I have to say about that. It was Pat did write a good article in the paper, and if you get a chance to read it, it's there, and there we are. Okay, other than that, I have nothing else. Does anybody got anything else? And we guess we're done a little early, Annalene. We can.
So through you, Mayor Bridge, what we can do is we can take a 15-minute break. Make sure you come back just before 5 though. And at that point in time, we'll go into our public meetings.
Super. Okay, thanks everybody. Just take a break. Don't leave. Like, just keep yourself. Great. Thanks everybody. We're back. Starting our public meetings, and our first public meeting will be on, I'll act as chair of the public meeting. I call the meeting to order, and Clerk McRobb to ensure that any member of the public present is recorded on the attendance record. And I'll state the following: if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Minto before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the town of Minto to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. I'll ask Clerk McRobb to state the municipal address and legal description of the property and the purpose and effect of the application, the date notice were sent. Go ahead, Annalene.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. The property subject to the proposed amendment is located on Lot 35, Concession 2, with a municipal address of 8845 School Road 7 in the town of Minto. The subject property is approximately 81.5 hectare or 201.4 acres in size. The purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands to prohibit future residential development on the retained agriculture portion of the property. This rezoning is a condition of severance application B 53-20, which has been granted provisional consent by the Wellington County Land Division Committee. The consent will sever a 1 hectare or 2.5 acre parcel with an existing dwelling and a shed. An 81.5 hectare or 201.4 acre agricultural parcel would be retained. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. The notices were mailed to the property owners within 400 feet or 120 meters of the subject property, as well as applicable agencies on June 17, 2021, and posted on the subject property. Comments have been received from the planner at the County of Wellington, as well as our planning technician for the town of Minto. And back to you, Chair Bridge.
Thank you. And I will call on the county planner to provide comments regarding proposed amendment. Matt, you're on. I see you right there. There you are. Go ahead, Matt.
Perfect. Thank you. Through you, Chair. Before you today is a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural site specific. As the clerk has mentioned, this applicant has received conditional approval on severance application B5320 under the surplus farm dwelling policies. And as you may know, under these policies, a standard condition is placed that the retained farmlands be rezoned to prohibit any future residential. So all in all, the application conforms to the zoning bylaw as well as the official plan and provincial policy, and planning staff have no concerns.
Thank you. And maybe I'll call on Ashley and then I'll open up for questions. Ashley, do you want to do the town?
Yeah, so as Matt mentioned, this one is pretty straightforward and it is a requirement of the provincial policy statement. Town staff haven't noted any concerns, and this is one of the last conditions to clear to wrap up the severance from the town's end. So,
great, thank you. I'll call on the agent, or is Dave? David, you want to speak to this, or?
I'm here.
Well, I'll ask if there's any questions, Dave. If you want to, then I'll ask now if anybody has any questions of the three people from the council. Not seeing any. Okay. I'll call anyone wishing to comment in favor, and obviously David, and anyone commenting on a rebuttal, and anybody against this at this point in time that I see. I don't see anybody else.
For you, Mayor Bridge, no one registered to speak to this.
I thought that was the case. Okay. And council, do you don't have any questions? So that's great. And then I'll just state the following. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Council of Town of Minto in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, you must make a written request to the clerk of the Town of Minto at 5941 Highway 89, Harrison, NOG 1ZO, or email at annaleen@town.minto.on.ca. There's no further comments. I'll adjourn the public meeting. And thanks for everybody for coming and participating. Done. The next one is I will call the meeting to order and act as chair, and to ensure that the member of the public present is recorded in the attendance record. I'll state the following: if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Minto before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Town of Minto and to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. I'll call on Clerk McRobb to state the municipal address, legal description of the property, and purpose and effect of the application date notice were sent. Go ahead, Annalene.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. The property subject to the proposed amendment is located on Lot 42, Concession 11, with a municipal address of 9399 Howick Minto Town Line. The subject property is approximately 40 hectare or 98.8 acres in size. The proposed and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands to permit a dog kennel within a proposed new drive shed. The lands are currently zoned as agriculture and natural environment zone and are occupied by a single dwelling, barn, and shed. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. The notices were mailed to property owners within 400 feet or 120 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies on June 22nd, 2021, and posted on the subject property. Comments have been received from the planner of the County of Wellington and our planning technician for the Town of Minto.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Matt. And Matt, you want to do the county one?
Will do. Thank you, Chair. So before you today is a zoning bylaw amendment seeking to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural site specific. The applicant is seeking an amendment to permit a kennel in a new accessory structure. The application is before council today as kennels are prohibited in all zones within the Minto zoning bylaw. So a conformity exercise was completed to ensure the proposed kennel is located beyond the 150-meter setback requirement from any adjacent dwellings or barns. And planning staff can confirm the proposed kennel is beyond the aforementioned setback. So, and as part of the kennel bylaw, the proposal is subject to site plan control where the finer grain details will be looked after. And with that said, planning staff have no concerns and I welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you. And let's hold our questions maybe until Ashley does hers and then we'll open it up for our questions. Go ahead, Ashley.
Yep. So as Matt mentioned, a rezoning is required, but once a rezoning is obtained, the applicant still has to apply for a kennel license, and this is something that has to be renewed annually. So these licenses are only approved through our dog control officer once they have thoroughly inspected the premises and made sure that everything is up to code. The town does have the right at any time to cancel a kennel license if it is of the opinion that that is in the best interest of the town. So it can be canceled due to things like care of the dogs, noise problems, sanitation, as the town sees fit. We do also have quite a few regulations around the kennel conditions that are set out in our bylaw as well as in the code of practice for Canadian kennel operations. So the dogs can't be kept in unsanitary conditions. The enclosures must protect them from the heat, the cold, and the wet. They must be of sufficient size. They have to be cleaned regularly, sanitized. There has to be sufficient space for puppies to be adequately socialized and for their enrichment. And in addition to that, there are a lot of administrative requirements as well. You have to keep records for the dogs, their vaccination records, vet records, their arrival departure schedules, and the purchaser's information as well. Our dog control officer also has the right at any reasonable hour to go inspect the kennel as they see fit. So I did want to note that the applicant has already applied for a permit for the proposed drive shed. It's a portion of this that's going to be used for the kennel. The rest is going to be used for farm uses. So that being said, we will be requiring a change of use permit for the portion of the kennel as well as inspections of the structures that the kennel will be using as well. Other than that, town staff have no additional comments and we are in favor of the rezoning.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll have the applicant. Brad, would you like to speak to the application? There you go. You just have to unmute yourself, Brad, then. There you go. You're good.
This could be a process here.
No problem. I heard you were practicing this, so that's good. No problem. Go ahead.
Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Then, if you want to speak to it, or you want to wait and then answer any questions the council might have.
Oh shoot, this thing isn't.
We can hear you. There you go. Okay.
You can hear me. I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, okay. That's not good.
It's really quiet.
Well, it's
I got
not
the
a really
volume
good
all the
day
way.
for this with the thunder and lightning going on outside. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know what
Okay. Well, we'll go forward on this.
on here.
Yeah. Can you hear us now?
Just barely. I'm not sure. Sorry about this.
Oh, well, we can hear you well. So just if you want to just hang on for a second, then I'll go to the next. If there's questions, you can answer them for us if that'll work out.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I can hear you now, actually. So.
All right. Thank you. And then there was 2 people registered, Annaline, to speak. Did they want to speak? No, they're gone. I don't see them. Oh, they're there.
For
Right?
you,
No, I got them.
Mary and Eric Gray.
Mary and Eric Gray. Mary or Eric, did you want to speak at this time? Or you want to wait for the questions, if there's any?
All Erica and I wanted to say was that we're in favor of Brad's application. That's all.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Mary. Okay, so then the next up would be any questions from the councilors. So I'll open it up to the councilors for any of the people that are on the line. Deputy Mayor Turk.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. It's more of a comment. And I just wanted to say that, you know, the transparency here in reference to Ashley's report. Ashley has really put forward exactly what kennels are all about in Minto. And I really think that that's the first time that I have heard this all discussed during an application. So I really think it's important, the transparency for the town of Minto to get out to our dog kennel owners exactly what we expect of them and how they're supposed to be treating the dogs, especially the number of people in the town of Minto and other areas that have voiced their opinion in reference to dog kennels.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a great business to be in, but our kennel owners need to abide by the Minto bylaws, especially, I mean, dogs, cats, any animals are extremely important to a lot of people. And so, I mean, I'm in favor of this motion, this bylaw, and I'm glad that Ashley brought all that up because I think it's important that we get that out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Turton, and well done, Ashley and Matt. The two reports were well explained, and that's what it's all about. And it does show us that we have control of the kennels and making sure that the animals are well looked after, and I'm sure they will be. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all right. Then I will say, if you wish to be notified of the decision of council of the town of Minto in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, you must make a written request to the clerk of the town of Minto at 5941 Highway 89, Harrison NOG 1ZO, or email at annaline@town.minto.on.ca. If there's no further comments, I will adjourn the public meeting. Thanks everybody for turning in, and Brad and Mary, you made it through this procedure, and hopefully by September we'll actually be able to be in the council chambers doing this. So, but anyway, take care.
Thanks.
Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councilor Anderson, that the town of Minto Committee of the Whole convenes the Committee of Adjustment. Anybody opposed? None. Okay, now we're moving into Committee of Adjustment. And okay, this meeting public hearing is to consider minor variance of MV 2021-10, Bill and Wilda Burke. And I'll call on the Secretary Treasurer McRobb to state the following information. Go ahead, Annaline.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. The property subject to the proposed minor variance application is legally described as Part Lot 10. Sorry, I'm just hearing a lot of background noise.
Hey, Gary.
There we go. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks,
the property
Gary.
subject to the proposed minor variance is legally described as Part Lot 10, Concession 11, in the former township of Minto with a municipal address of 9417 and 9421 Pike Lake Road in the town of Minto. The subject property is plus or minus 2.2 acres or plus or minus 0.9 hectare in size. The purpose and effect of the application is to permit an existing accessory structure workshop with a ground floor area of approximately 490.52 meters squared or 5,280 foot squared to be retained with the existing single family detached dwelling. The accessory structure ground floor area exceeds the maximum ground floor area of 227.6 meters squared or 2,450 feet squared, currently permitted in the town of Minto's comprehensive zoning bylaw 0186 as amended. This minor variance is a condition of consent application B1221 for a lot line adjustment, which has been granted provisional consent by Wellington County Land Division Committee. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. The notices were mailed to the property owner within 200 feet or 60 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies, and posted on June 17, 2021 on the subject property. Reports came from Ashley Sawyer for the town of Minto and the junior planner for Wellington County. They are the only speaker that we have registered is Gary Williamson.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Ashley, and you're going to handle both the county and yourself, right, Ashley? Go ahead.
Yes. So in consultation with the county, it was determined that this condition of severance could be satisfied with the minor variance. Essentially, the workshop and the house are as existing, and the purpose of the lot line adjustment is to bring them onto one parcel. The farmland that's there will remain as is and untouched. So the county did not express any concerns, neither did town staff, but we are recommending the condition that the workshop can be used for personal use only. There can't be any additional accessory structures built as long as that workshop is there. That includes anything under the home industry provisions or a hobby barn. And the permission is only for the existing workshop. Once it is gone, the variance is void and they'll have to apply the maximum 2450 square footage permitted.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to call on Gary. Gary, did you want to speak to the application? And then I'm going to turn it over to the.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm just like a bad cold. I never quite go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really kind of a housekeeping thing, and I heard the comments from Ashley about it being used only for private or personal use, and that is no concern of the applicant. They've asked me to represent them as they're both in Edmonton. Bill's working out there. So both buildings were done under the township building permits, and this is, as I said, kind of a housekeeping deal, and it doesn't make any sense for them to try and meet the bylaw by having to demolish half of the shed. So I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Gary. And then I'll just hang in there and I'll ask the council if they have any questions. Council, questions? Seeing none. Now, Annalene, I guess we're into that response. I would probably go with the positive response.
Okay, what I can do is I'm just gonna get Gary to mute his phone again.
Sorry, can you mute Gary?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will provide you the approval and just for you.
Oh, you're back on again.
I'm gonna mute him
There you
again. There we go. That the Town of Minto Committee of Adjustment approves the application by Bill and Wilda Burke for property legally described as Part Lot 10, Concession 11, with a municipal address of 9417, 9421 Pike Lake Road in the Town of Minto to provide relief from Section 6.1.4B of the Town of Minto's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 06-86 as amended. Relief is granted from Section 6.1.4B to permit the existing accessory structure workshop with a ground floor area of approximately 490.52 meters squared or 5,280 feet squared to be retained with the existing single-family detached dwelling as it exceeds the maximum ground floor area permitted for the accessory structure of 227.6 meters squared, 2,450 feet squared for a lot this size. The existing accessory structure with a ground floor area of 490.52 meters squared, 5,280 foot squared is permitted as an accessory building subject to the following conditions. Additional accessory structures are not permitted on the property, including a hobby barn or building under the home industry provisions. The recognition of the ground floor area applies only to existing accessory building, and removal of the building shall void this provision. And the building may only be used for personal use, accessory to the main residential dwelling, and may not be used for livestock and or used for business, commercial uses, including a home industry. You would need a mover and a seconder.
A mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Elliott and Deputy Mayor Turton. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Okay, so I will now, anyone wishing to receive a copy of the notice of decision of the Committee of Adjustment with respect to the minor variance application must make a written request to the clerk of the Town of Minto at 5941 Highway 89, Harrison, NOG 1ZO, or email at annaline@town.minto.on.ca. Officially adjourn the public meeting. And I move by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Elliott. The Committee of Adjustment convenes the regular council. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay. Notice of motion. Any notice of motion? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor Gudson, that the Council of Town Minto ratifies the motions made in the Committee of the Whole. Anybody opposed? Carried. Bylaws. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor McKenzie, the bylaw number 2021-58 being the bylaw to establish policies and procedures with respect to sale and other disposition of the Town of Minto owned lands be read first, second, and third time and passed over the council and seal with seal of the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Gunson, second by Deputy Mayor Turton, bylaw number 2021-59 to authorize the sale of industrial lands on Minto Road, Palmerston Industrial Park to Golden Canadian Homes, Inc. Be read first, second, and third time and passed open council and seal the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Dirksen, that the bylaw number 2021-60 to amend the zoning bylaw 01-86 is amended by rezoning 8845 School Road 7, Town of Minto be read first, second, and third time and passed open council and seal the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Gunson, the bylaw number 2021-61 to amend the zoning bylaw 01-86 is amended by rezoning 9399 Howie Minto Town Line, Town of Minto be read first, second, and third time and open and passed open council and seal the corporation. Anybody opposed? Councillor McKenzie. Moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Council approved. That it's approved though. Moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councillor Anderson, the bylaw number 2021-62 to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a mural agreement between the corporation of the Town of Minto and Ray Hears be read first, second, and third time and passed open council seal the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor Elliott, that the bylaw number 2021-63 to confirm actions of the council of the corporation of the Town of Minto respecting a meeting held July 13th, 2021 be read first, second, and third time and passed open council seal the corporation. Anybody opposed? Okay, just before I adjourn, I must mention that I did go out and check the pumpkins the other day, Deputy Mayor Turton, and mine's doing really well. I just want to say that, just out of curiosity. Now, I have to worry about the storm here because it's so big, it might have flattened it out or something. But anyways, everybody get out there and tenderly look after them. No questions. I know I'm not allowing any questions. So I'll go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Mayor Bridge, I'm just wondering, what have you done for your pumpkin plant lately? Have you went out and have you done anything at all? Have you went out and just give it some moral support or anything at all?
I've been watering it quite religiously. That's no problem.
Can you say that with an honest face?
I have. There's a bucket there, and I go out and talk to it and put a bucket of water on it.
Okay, it's growing really well.
Yeah. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Deputy Mayor Turton. The Council of Town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the mayor. Anybody opposed? Thanks everybody for a good meeting.
Have a great summer, you guys.
Bye, everybody.